Reflection, relationship, return.
Hi, everyone. This is Heather Vickery, and you've tuned in to the Brave Files podcast. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. Thank you. Thank you for being a listener and a supporter and a fan. I am curious, my friends. Have you received your own set of Create Brave cards yet? This 48 card deck is filled with beautiful artwork and inspiration to help guide you through your next steps. It's a tool for sourcing and manifesting whatever it is that's next for you in your life. Maybe just next in that exact moment, or next in the week, or the year, or the next 5 years. If you like tarot cards, oracle cards, or affirmation cards, these manifestation cards are for you. You can get your very own set of them right now by visiting vickeryandco.com/store. Order your set. If you're curious to know more, I'm going live every day on TikTok. If you're not already following me on TikTok, head on over and let's do that right now. I'm at Brave Heather. I am pulling a daily card on TikTok. You can get to know the cards and see just exactly why you want to have a set of Create Brave cards for yourself. All right, today's episode is with my friend and fellow podcaster, Julie Neale. Julie is an author and the host of the Mother's Quest podcast, but she's here today to share her parenting journey through neurodiversity and the decision to reclaim her own epic life. In this episode, we discuss the truly powerful notion that two or more things can be true at the very same time. We talk about parenting is not, it's not for the faint of heart. It's definitely not. And the incredible gifts of seeking knowledge and being open to learning new things. Sometimes commitment seems to be the thing that opens the door and creates answers and opportunities. And we talk about so much more than that. It's such a great conversation. Stay with us for this beautiful conversation.
This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show.
Hi, friends. I am thrilled to chat with my friend and fellow podcaster, Julie Neale, today. After spending many, many years navigating early intervention for her oldest child and then dealing with infertility to get pregnant with her second, Julie decided to reclaim herself and say yes to what she calls her epic life. I can't wait for you to learn more about Julie's epic life. She is the host of the Mother's Quest podcast and an author with her new, somewhat still kind of new, tiny book. My friend Julie, welcome to the Brave Files.
Heather, I'm so honored to be here with you and really excited for this conversation.
Me too. We have been sort of floating around and following each other virtually for like a number of years now.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that the way we connected first was several years ago through an initiative I started called Women Podcasters in Solidarity. And you contributed an episode to that season, which was focused on, prevention of gun violence.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That episode was, I think it was the theory of accountability. Does that sound right to you?
I don't remember the title, but I do remember it was a friend of yours who had actually been shot. And it was all about her, kind of coming to forgiveness and how she moved into advocacy.
The shot that changed my life. Yes, mm-hmm. Yes. Nicole Zinner. Gosh, yes. Interesting. I wonder if I thought about sending you both of them. The theory of accountability is the story of my friend and neighbor, Omar Yamini, who was sentenced to, he spent 15 years in prison for murder, and he did not commit murder.
Oh my God.
He was a witness to murder. And in the state of Illinois, we have a law still to this day called the theory of accountability, which means you're accountable if you don't stop it, even though he tried to stop it and he couldn't.
Well, that's injustice there. Oh my
Indeed.
goodness. Wow.
Indeed. Anyway, folks, go back and listen to both of those episodes. I think Omar is like, it was such a long conversation. It was episode 8 and 9, I want to say, or 7 and 8. I should know, but I don't. We'll put it in the show notes. And I am pretty sure Nicole's episode is episode 40, but we'll put that in the show notes too. Anyway, we're here to talk about Julie, but yes, gosh, I had forgotten that that's how we met. And are you still doing Women Podcasters in Solidarity with themes? Is that still a thing?
Well, I was thinking about it this morning, actually, getting ready for this conversation, and the initiative has not been active. The last season was a couple years ago, and our focus was on immigration. And I would say that I continue to do episodes that are part of the initiative in my heart, but my desire to gather people, other podcasters, and have us all recording episodes around themes, that hasn't felt as resonant for me in recent years. And some of that is because of my own growth and learning. I think at the time that I started it, which was the day after the Charlottesville rally, I felt like at the time, particularly white women podcasters were not always having brave conversation about social justice issues.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Accurate statement.
Yeah. And I made a commitment that day that I would. And I figured if I said yes, then some other people like you would say yes and come along with me. And that felt important for the time. I think two things. One good thing is I do think a lot more people are stepping into these kinds of conversations. It felt less necessary to have an initiative to support that.
Yeah.
And two, in my own growth and learning, I realized that without BIPOC women in some places of leadership in that initiative for accountability, it didn't feel as an integrity for me anymore. But I felt like it really served a purpose at the time.
It gives me chills. It really does. That self-awareness that there was a time where it was good for you to lead that charge, and now is not that time. Now is the time to raise up the voices of women of color.
Yes.
And let them lead and follow their lead. Yeah. We're not letting them. They're leading as they should be, as they have.
Following their lead and being an authentic relationship with them.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Gosh, that's not where I thought this conversation was going to start with, but it is so beautiful and so resonant. And I'm really glad that everyone got to hear that. It's not very often that we have these kinds of conversations out loud in public places where somebody may go, "Oh my gosh, I've never thought of that," or "Yes, that's what I think." And so I'm glad we could do that.
Well, I'm always happy to have this conversation, and I'm really excited that we can shine a light on the episodes that we've recorded and that you can link to the ones that you talked about, which are so powerful. And we'll definitely circle back around this because it will come into play again when you ask me about the organizations that I support.
Okay, excellent. So Julie, gosh, talk about a mother's quest. And this feels very raw for me right now, not anywhere near the kind of quest that you've been on, but my own version of questing right now as a mom of 4 and 2 teenagers. And it's just dicey. I don't know what the words are. But let's talk about your journey and your quest. And I think it maybe makes sense to start with your oldest child.
Absolutely. We can start there. First of all, I just want to acknowledge parenting or mothering in any way, even if you're not a biological mother, it is not for the faint of heart.
Oh boy.
It is really the most challenging, gratifying, soul-stretching, brave work there is. And I think parenting teenagers has a particular element of challenge. So I just want to acknowledge you for being in the midst of it.
Thank you. I receive all of that.
So I have the pleasure of being mom to an amazing teenager, Ryan, who is, gosh, he's going to be 18 in March.
Wow.
It's hard to believe. I'll probably cry through this episode at some point. I'm already feeling a little teary.
Me too.
Woo! But I actually had about a year and a half of infertility before I conceived Ryan naturally. And when he arrived into the world, my husband and I were so just fully embracing the opportunity to be parents. We wanted it more than anything. We were so thrilled. And I really felt like my dreams came true, honestly. I mean, I think motherhood was one of the things I always knew I wanted to be a key part of my life. And I was so fulfilled to be able to have this child in my arms. And from the very beginning, it was this combination of, and this is true today, like the best, most amazing experience and also the most challenging. So we had all these things happen. Like
Yeah.
he had was laid on his head flat and had to have a helmet. He had reflux, and when I was nursing, I remember I would be patting him to burp and wondering if the projectile vomit was going to come out. And then I had to nurse him sitting up. There were just at every single turn, there was some little thing that was a challenge, but yet I would find the resources, find the help, figure out what we needed to do. And then we were back on track. And then when he was about 18 months old, we realized that he was not developing typically.
Okay.
And had him evaluated. And for a number of years, I would describe this as he was just had developmental delays. But in my recent episode on my podcast, which I recorded with Ryan and Julie Lithcott-Hames, the amazing author of the books How to Raise an Adult and How to Be an Adult, Ryan actually shared publicly for the first time that he's autistic. And
Wow.
I now have permission to use that language, which is not something that I used to do before, just to honor, his privacy.
Sure.
But so by 18 months, we had an autism diagnosis. At the time, it was incredibly scary. Everything you imagined was negative. And I didn't see role models or other kids or adults to kind of light the way for what Ryan's path could look like. And we were told at the time that they thought that he would learn to speak someday.
Wow.
So that
This
was
is
a
the
lot.
kid who just did a podcast interview with you.
Yeah, he's,
Yeah.
Ironically or the universe. I don't know what we want to say about that, but he's actually one of the most articulate, eloquent, self-aware humans I've ever known. And that episode is really something special. So I would definitely
can't
encourage
wait
you
to
to listen
listen.
to it and
Although it
hopefully
may
get back to it.
crush my soul right now, so I might have to wait a minute to listen to it, just from the stage of life that I'm in right now. I have to share this story and not to cut you off, and I'm so sorry, and it's not completely relevant, but just thinking about those doctors telling you that and how that just wasn't true. I am reminded when I was in my early 20s, I worked for the Special Olympics for the state of Illinois. And I worked with an ambassador program where the athletes would travel and speak to raise money. And we had an athlete who I just loved. Her name was Sophia. And Sophia had Down syndrome. She would say, "Hello, my name is Sophia Wesolowski, and I am 26 years old. And when I was born, the doctors told my parents that I would never read, and I would never walk, and I would never talk. But doctors are human, and sometimes they're wrong."
Wow.
And everyone would cry, and I cry just retelling that story. It just makes me think of that, like these resilient, incredible, beautifully different children of the world, like your son.
Yeah, I'm over here nodding. What's interesting about my motherhood and life journey is that, my thinking about Ryan and his being autistic has changed so much over the years. And, currently that whole episode with Julie Lithcott-Hames ended up being about neurodiversity and embracing neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had after many years of infertility, I had a second son, Jacob, who's 9 now. He is dyslexic and has dysgraphia and ADHD.
Okay,
And
dysgraphia is numbers, yes?
no, that's dyscalculia. So dysgraphia is difficulty writing.
Oh, right. Of course, that makes sense. We could edit that
Yeah.
out so that I don't look stupid, but we'll leave it in
No.
because I don't know all the things either. So if you were thinking that, what are those things? Now we all know.
Yeah, why would you know those things? And then this last year, so on December 1st, I turned 50, and the whole last year was my year of becoming 50. And part of that has been my journey to become more of who I really am and to embrace myself. And because of the things I was learning about neurodiversity, I realized that I thought I may have ADHD.
Me too.
And got that diagnosis for myself in the last year.
How has that? So my second daughter was diagnosed with ADHD about a year ago, and in learning how to support her, I'm like, maybe this answers so many questions for
Yes.
me. How has getting that diagnosis for yourself changed anything for you, or has it?
Well, I think for sure, and I think this is quite common, there was a little bit of a more of a sense of acceptance for myself around some of the things in my life that have always been challenging, and that, I think I've always loved myself, and I kind of would sort of laugh about the things that made me who I am and even appreciate some of it. So I was the kid who never got in trouble for anything except for being late, losing my things, spilling. I used to spill food on like every piece of clothing I had. Like there's just this like distracted, absent-minded way about me, but that also made me slightly laid back.
Yeah, and that's not
It
bad.
in a way I do appreciate. So, but I would get frustrated with myself. And I mostly, as I got older, have become frustrated with the impact of my behavior on the people that are close to me and that I love. So I know that some of my ways of being are really hard for my husband. I know that some of those things have been challenging for my kids. I feel that some of it is holding me back from the fullest version of success and fulfillment in my work. And so there was both a kind of accepting, like, okay, actually, I'm differently wired in the same way that my kids are, in different ways, but, my kids are also differently wired. And I want to accept and support and champion them and help them figure out their path to navigating life with their both disability and strengths that come with their diagnoses. So it's been helpful. And I also truly believe, and I've always said this from the beginning, I used to talk with a lot of parents who also had concerns about their children and were considering whether to get their kids evaluated. And my feeling was always to seek more information, to not be afraid of a label, that labels can open doors for you. And so I feel like since I got my ADHD diagnosis, I've been able to open some new doors because I know where to look.
Yeah.
So I can do some reading. I've worked with some coaches who specifically work with ADHD women. And that just helps me understand myself better, and it helps me find some tools and strategies that are going to help me succeed.
I love that. And I have to give a little plug here to my friend and client, Jeanette Graham is her name, who hosts the Excuse My ADHD podcast. And it is specifically for adults who discover they have ADHD.
I'll have to check that out. And I was looking through your amazing book.
Oh, thank you.
And I saw that you highlighted Pasha Marlowe, who I had a conversation with recently. And I know she has ADHD and keeps that at the forefront of the work that she does to help other people. So many amazing people out there. And
I know.
I'm glad that it is becoming, that people are feeling more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, me too. It's me too. It's really, really game changing, I think. And you're right. There's such a sense of maybe finally being able to give ourselves. And I found with, at least with my children, so I can't speak for you, um, just a more kindness, more compassion and self-compassion. Like, we're all doing the best we can within operating and navigating our own brains and the way that we function. And we have to do that. We're so hard on ourselves and we're hard on each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan and I had the amazing experience of participating in a therapy over the last year called DBT, Dialectical
Mm.
Behavioral Therapy. And the basic premise of dialectic, which I love, is that like these two things can be true at the same time. And
Yes.
so Ryan and I particularly are really working on holding. We have diagnoses that can be a disability and provide challenges that we feel like we want to change. And at the same time, we can also accept and love ourselves. So you can
Yes.
really work to hold both. It's not always easy, but I really have been trying to do that myself as I got my diagnosis, to acknowledge that, okay, there may be a reason for the ways that I show up, and I can have compassion. And that doesn't mean that I can't try to figure out how to not let these things be barriers, or find
Mm.
ways so that the impact of this in my life is less harmful to the people that around me who I love.
I love that. Now, is that something that Ryan, as a person with autism, struggles with? This yes and space. This, there can be two things at once. It's not always black and white. There's gray.
Yeah, well, I think that is definitely a hallmark of autism, that you may, have more black and white thinking. I actually just think it's also just a hallmark of being human. Um,
Sure.
but
For some people, it is a very natural way of being. I'm not one of those people, but I know a lot of people who are.
yeah, so for sure, I think it is definitely even more challenging for him, and therefore, the working in DBT, having that be this foundational premise, has been
Mm,
very helpful.
that's cool. I'm going to look more into that. I have a couple of very black and white children. This is
Black and white
we're
thinking.
black and white thinking. We are not talking about race or ethnicity. Um, because they're all super white. My kids are like also super white. Three out of four have blue or green eyes. They're all very white. But yeah, and so that's fascinating. We're gonna research that. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for anybody who's curious to know more. Okay, I do have one quick question before you tell us about your epic life. I can only imagine. I often imagine when you're faced with so many early intervention challenges with a child, that choosing to bring more children into the mix is not straightforward. What was that process like? And then you struggled with infertility again, as you mentioned earlier on it. How do you navigate all that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was challenging, and we did not try to have a second child for about 3 or 4 years after Ryan was born, and a lot of that, I think, was we had our hands full. We were very focused on supporting him, and I think maybe there was some fear or worry about what would come. I think I felt for absolutely no reason, pretty clear that, like, "Oh, now I was gonna have a typically developing
Oh, of
child."
course.
I'm like, "I don't think that's gonna
Couldn't
happen
possibly
again."
have two. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and of course, I got Jacob is so different from Ryan, and it was not the same experience, but he was differently wired in all these other different ways. So, I think that, uh, stepping into parenthood is always a mystery. Like
Yeah.
there are no guarantees about anything. I think I was more prepared actually to support having a child who has differences because of Ryan.
Sure.
So,
That makes
it
sense.
was much easier to step into like, okay, I know what to do. I even know who to call. Like, we've even used some of the same, evaluators, providers, people who have supported our family, to support Jacob too. And then lots of different paths. Like Jacob is really fortunate to go to a special school in our area that is pretty renowned. Some people travel like 1 to 2 hours a day to get their kids there,
Wow.
for dyslexic learners, and many of whom also have ADHD. And so he has this experience of having teachers who are teaching him exactly the way his brain needs to learn, and around peers who all understand him and have, similar things that they're navigating. Whereas Ryan was always in mainstream education. And so much of who he is shaped by his constant journey to try to be like his neurotypical peers, which has given him incredible strengths and insight, and also a lot of pain. So no journey is the same.
No journey is the same for anyone. And yet we hear tales and stories of each other's journeys, and they give us hope, and they inspire us, and they make us feel connected. And I would love to hear about your journey towards reclaiming yourself and building your epic life, which is an acronym, and I fucking love acronyms. So let's talk about that.
I know you do. Yes, I had what I call a spark moment that set me on living what I now call my epic life. Um, Jacob was about 4 at the time, and yeah, as you've heard, my motherhood journey was challenging and
Mhm,
full.
mhm.
Navigating the early intervention and all the years of infertility, and then having a young child, and then having him start to have some differences that we were supporting. And I felt like I had grown in incredible ways, but I also felt like I had really lost parts of myself. And particularly, I think I lost the part of myself that knew that I'm here to make an impact in the world
Mm,
beyond motherhood. So
right.
motherhood is an amazing way to impact, maybe one of the most profound. And I felt like my personal leadership and legacy in the world was not fully expressed because I was so consumed by motherhood and the role of motherhood. And I came from the nonprofit field, so I had a fulfilling career before my kids, and then after my kids, I continued to work and have become focused on facilitation and coaching, primarily for youth development organizations working with their staff. So it wasn't that I wasn't doing anything meaningful, but I had for years been thinking that I would like to bring my coaching and facilitation skills and experience through a process called reflection, which is where one of those R's come from for me,
Yes.
to mothers in particular, because I felt like, oh wow, this premise that I had in the youth development world, that the adults who are working with young people who are trying to help them learn and grow actually need to be learning and growing too, and actually need to be providing some space for one another to reflect on what's showing up for them in the work and what's showing up in their relationship with one another, and how can they do better so that they can model that for the young people they're working with. And I felt like, God, that's such an amazing frame for parents too, that our
Yeah.
kids learn so much more from what they see in us, and that we should be continuing to walk the kind of life we want for them, and being transparent with our kids and talking about it as we're doing those things. And so I knew I wanted to do it. The name Mother's Quest was with me for so many years. And I had actually done a pilot workshop with some of my closest friends. They all came over, and I sort of tested out some of these ideas. And then on this particular day of my spark moment, I had dropped Ryan off at school, and Jake and I were coming in through the house, and I looked at my phone, and you know how Facebook is kind of an oracle sometimes. It popped up this memory, and it was like, it's been a year since your Mother's Quest workshop. And I had this sinking, horrible feeling of just feeling trapped, like, oh my God, it's been a year since I did that and I've done nothing with it since. And this sense that it's my calling and how could I not be pursuing it? And I was so frustrated with myself and really felt stuck. And literally seconds after that thought ran through my head, Jake and I heard a crashing noise and realized that there was a bird that had somehow come in my little narrow doorway and was crashing
Oh,
against the glass, trying to get out to our back garden.
wow.
Yeah. So we kind of freaked out. And then I realized, okay, I calmed down. It was a very jarring experience, but I calmed down. And I was like, oh, I just need to open the door and the bird will walk out. So I opened the door and sure enough, it actually flies right out. And I'm standing at the doorway and I start to think, this feels like a metaphor.
Birds
Think
so
the
often
universe,
are, aren't they?
aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes. I get so much meaning from birds. So anyways, I had this like fleeting moment of I think I felt trapped like the bird and I just need someone to open a door for me. And then I'm sure I would have just gone on with the rest of my day and nothing would have changed except that a few seconds later we heard crashing again. And it turned out there was a second bird in the house. And this time I knew exactly what to do. I opened the door and this
Yes.
bird slowly and methodically walked out. And the other thing that's interesting is I noticed that the first bird didn't leave. It was hanging around on the wood landing. And I remembered worrying like maybe it hurt a wing or something. And it turned out that when the second bird left, then they both flew away. And I had taken a picture of the birds and I found out that they were mourning doves, which
Mm.
symbolize motherhood. And the mourning doves mate for life. And so the one bird was waiting for the other. And I knew in that moment that there was much more for me. And so I do what I do a lot, which is I took the time to actually stop and reflect and make meaning, connect with what was really coming up. And then I decided in that moment that I was done waiting. And I sat down and I typed out a Facebook post, which is actually the original to that is in my tiny book, and just declared that I was going to create this thing, Mother's Quest, that I had been dreaming about. And I was done waiting. And I didn't have the language epic life yet, but I had a lot of the same meaning behind it. And that was over 5 years ago. And then I launched Mother's Quest as a 45th birthday present to myself in 2016, which was about 6 months or so after the episode with the birds getting trapped. And then we just celebrated the 5-year birthday of Mother's Quest and my 50th. And it's been an absolutely incredible journey over those 5 years. My life has been so enriched by that commitment I made to myself that day. And then I also realized in reflecting as part of that celebration that in truth, I've always been living my epic life.
Mm.
That there are these moments and times where we wander away from our purpose or away from a sense of feeling fully alive. We get lost in various things. And there's when we're in relationship with ourself and our own thoughts and others, which is the second R that I named, we can
Mhm.
return to who we really are and what we're really here to do. So that's how it all unfolded for me. And epic then became this language I was able to clarify, which is both a metaphor for living the kind of life where you do feel fulfilled, where you do feel like you're following your passion and your purpose. And also EPIC is an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life when we're raising our kids.
Yes. I love that. And I love that you said we are always living our epic life. We just don't always, I'm paraphrasing now because I can't like press a button and go back and listen to you verbatim. But this idea that it doesn't always feel like it. Sometimes we've
Yeah.
gone off the path and sometimes it feels so hard. Like, how can this possibly be it? But it's always it. What else could it
Yes.
be?
That's been my recent realization.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's really lovely. Okay, you mentioned your tiny book. Let's talk about your tiny book. What led you to it? What is it, and why a tiny book?
So, well, one of the main principles in Mother's Quest is that we are in a reciprocal relationship with our children. So, not
Mm.
only are we hopefully guiding and teaching them, but they are absolutely inspiring, guiding, and teaching us. And I always learn from my kids, go to them with big questions, um, and they often challenge me. And so, I am a writer in the sense that writing has always been one of the ways that I express myself, one of the ways that I make meaning of my life. You know, the fact that I sat down and wrote a Facebook post, maybe Facebook was the vehicle, but it was the writing and the sharing of it.
Mm.
That was
Mhm.
what was so transformational. And so when I did my podcast opening, I say I'm a writer. And my teenager Ryan is, pretty snarky and um he would always say things to me like, "Mom, if you're gonna be a writer, you need to do more than write Facebook posts." And, sometimes I'd, like, flip him off but but in the year of the pandemic in 2020, he said to me, "I challenge you to write a book before the year ends."
I love that kid.
And yeah, he's pretty amazing. And, I I said, "Okay, I think I'll do that." And then what happens to me a lot is when I make a commitment or sort of call something into my life, the answers appear if I keep my eyes
Always.
open.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So I had been Alex Franzen. Do you know Alex? Have
I
you been on
don't
any of her newsletters? Or she's
don't
an
think I do.
amazing writer coach, entrepreneur. Definitely check her out. You'll love all of her resources.
Okay.
And so I'd been following her for a long time, and I knew that she had, in partnership with Lindsay Smith, this course called the Tiny Book Course. And I think I had eyed it a few times, but this time it came through my email at exactly the right moment. And I was like, oh, that's the answer. What I love about it is it's this course that they offer that helps you move from idea to a tiny book, which is, I think they say it's like 80 pages or less typically in 90 days. So what I loved about it was one, I could hit that deadline that Ryan gave me. Uh,
Yes.
but also it felt manageable. It felt light. It felt fun. It felt like something I could definitely do and that I thought moms could do because every time I say
Mm.
yes to something for myself, I'm also imagining that I'm lighting the way for others in my community or that others might follow my lead in a similar way that the bird metaphor, like that first bird walked out the door, then the second one came after. Like that metaphor around one person walking through and the other one can follow has also been a thread for me. So I did what I always do, and I said yes to the tiny book course, but then I also invited other Mother's Quest members to come along for the journey. And
I love that about you.
5 other members said yes, and they all published their books in the first cohort. There's been a second cohort, but the first cohort, every single person published their book. And
Wow.
a particular one that I think you would love, if I could just give an example of one,
Of course. Yeah.
is from my amazing friend Genji Heiston. It's called Beyond the Hashtag: The Spirit, Heart, and Love of Black Men. And she decided to write it after George Floyd was murdered, and her niece came in and said, "Why don't people love Black men? Why don't they see what we see?" And so this little tiny book that Genji wrote is filled with love letters to all the Black men in her life in answer to her niece. And it's beautiful. And I know that if I didn't say yes to my tiny book, her incredible tiny book would not be in the world. So it was just an exponential win for me because I got to see all of these other mothers step into their passion and dream and create their own books. And so I recently signed up for the tiny book course again. And this time I created a Mother's
Yes.
Quest planner and,
Look at you.
yeah, now I have it in my hands and I've been using it and love it. And my husband fell in love with it and I bought one for him. So I'm really kind of enjoying this ability to create and to try to do it from a place of lightness and fun and to imagine that it doesn't have to be so hard.
I love all of that. I think it's so cool. Your friend's book sounds amazing. It made me feel all the feels. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I love the idea of achieving some dreams of being a published author that don't have to feel like climbing a mountain, 90
Yeah.
pages seems pretty doable. I wrote my book in 2020 also, so you said that. I'm like, oh, we were doing that right at the same
Yes.
time. And then, but I don't know about you, and I don't recall. I do remember you talking about publishing your book and getting it out there, but the the release process was what was so brutal for me. Editing was pretty shitty, but it was that press junket bit. It was the getting the word out and wanting, to make bestseller, which we did in 5 categories and top 10 in 9 categories. And it was incredible. But I was like, man, I'm never writing another book again. And my team literally laughed at
Mm.
me. And then I was prepping for this interview and I'm like, oh, her tiny book. I'm like, I could do a tiny book. Like, I could do that. And all of a sudden, and then I did last week also. This is so random. I get my partner some sort of motivational daily calendar where you strip off each day for Christmas every year. And the one I gave her is, things to meditate on. But as we've gone through it, they always kind of couch things in a negative standpoint. And that's just not
Mm.
the way I operate. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it like this. And I shouldn't even mention if I can't give an example, but it's, I will not be defined by the hurtful things other people say. I would say, I'm making this up on the fly. I would say I am only defined by my own truth.
Yes.
No one
So much more
defines my truth
empowering.
but me. It's so much more empowering, right? And I'm like, oh, well, I could do like a calendar or I could do a so and I'm like, no, but I would self-promote
Absolutely.
it. I don't know. It's exhausting. I'm like, somebody help me crack the code on how to just get this shit in Target and paper source, and then it wouldn't be so stressful. But where can people
Yeah.
get your tiny book? What is the name of it?
Yeah, so it's called The Mother's Quest Inspiration Guide, Volume 1. So that's
Yes.
the other thing is that working with one of my ADHD coaches, I was really struggling and, trying to hit all the epic guideposts in the book. So basically, the inspiration guide is like part memoir and part reflective journal for the reader,
Love that.
talking about my own experience and then highlighting, kind of going deep into each epic guidepost. And in each epic guidepost, talking about the practices that I've brought into my life and giving examples, having questions to help you think about it, and also highlighting podcast episodes where you could go
Yep.
deeper.
Yep.
And originally, I was going to do all 4 guideposts, and that was really fastly becoming not a tiny book. And my coach
Several books.
yeah, and my coach helped me realize, that I could, break it into smaller achievable pieces, and
Yeah.
so I have just the first volume out and do intend to do the others, but the first one has been a nice, way to introduce people to Mother's Quest. So the first half is really about my initial journey, and, it has the original letter of permission I wrote to myself at an Elizabeth Gilbert writing workshop, which
I
planted the
love that.
seeds the year before. It has that original Facebook post. It, kind of takes you through the napkin where I wrote the guidepost for the first time. So it takes you
Mm.
through the creation, but then it really dives deep into engaging mindfully with your kids. So like, I would hope, you said that you're definitely having, a challenging time with your daughter or more than one of your daughters. My hope
Whew.
would be that you could grab this book and flip to a page or a practice, and that there might be something there that you could try that might be helpful.
I love that.
So it's definitely meant to be something easy. You could literally go through the whole book in one sitting if you wanted to, or you can, just take it a few pages at a time when you feel inspired.
Where can folks get a copy?
Yeah, so it's available in all the places. So that's a
Yes.
really fun thing about publishing is you're like, "Oh, you can get it at Barnes& and Noble, and you can get it at Target and Bookshop." I have fun looking at that. So you could go to all the places and just put in Mother's Quest Inspiration Guide, it will pop up, but you can also go to the Mother's Quest website to find it, and I think it's also mothersquest.com, /inspiration guide will take you to the landing page.
Okay. That's awesome. Really quickly, I want to ask, you talked about now you have a Mother's Quest planning guide. Can you tell us more about
A
that?
planner. So it's
Oh, a planner. Yeah.
the first one I did is a year-long planner, and it's this amazing, compilation of a lot of the reflective tools and practices that I've created over the last years all in one place. So every February and every September, I lead people through a virtual milestone hike, which is a chance to kind of close up the chapter behind you and then thoughtfully begin again. And so the planner starts out with the worksheet for that and an explanation about the importance of ending well to begin well. Then it has, kind of the monthly spread. And then I have daily pages that can act almost like a journal for you, but also a chance to plan your day. So each daily page has a spot for your epic intentions for the day and what your schedule is, what daily practices you have where you can check off if you've done them, a place to record your gratitude. So all
Mm.
the things that I had been needing for myself and had sort of tried to customize through other people's planners, it's now all in one place. And I have Mother's Quest affirmations on the tab of every month. I have monthly planning pages where you can sort of assess your life along the epic wheel on a scale from 0 to 10, how things are feeling and what you might want to change that month. So there are all these reflective practices built in, but then it is also a practical planner where you can record your dates and plan your day. So that's a full year. And I like to have my whole year, but then I also created an undated 90-day version
Love that.
so that you could just test it out and pick it up anytime you'd like and not maybe have to carry around as large of a
Yeah.
planner.
And
But I'm
every
kind of in
day,
love with them.
yeah. Well, I love that because every day is a Tuesday. So you could choose to start at any point. You don't have to wait for some monumental moment or a new year or whatever to get started. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, Julie, you have so many wonderful things to celebrate, and I love your energy. You always sound so peaceful to me. I know that doesn't mean you maybe always feel peaceful, but just very in the flow and surrendered and ready to receive. I don't know if you feel that way, but that's the energy
Mm.
I get from you.
I strive to feel that way. I think I can definitely be in chaos. But I have over the years, I've done so much personal growth,
Yeah.
especially over the last 5 years and in large part to so many of the incredible guests I've had on the podcast that, I have a morning practice and I have, some meditative energetic tools that I've learned. And all of those things, if I make space for them, can absolutely help me to be more grounded.
Yeah.
And I think you asked me some questions about like, to reflect a little bit on times when I've been brave, but something very fresh, raw, and real in my life right now is that my dad passed away in December.
I'm so sorry.
And thank you. He was 80, almost 85. And had lived with type 1 diabetes since he was in his 30s. He was an
Wow.
adult onset type 1. And so he really did live like an amazing life and had few complications considering all his body was dealing with. So, we're filled with gratitude for so much, but we were also not expecting him to pass away when he did. He went in for a stent procedure and then came out on a ventilator. And it was shocking. And we ultimately had to make a decision to move him to comfort care, which means you just pull off all these life preserving methods, things that were the only
Yeah.
reason why he was really still alive. And because of the growth I've had and because of these practices I've learned, I knew I wanted to be by his side. I didn't want him to be alone as he transitioned. And I also trusted somehow. I got a lot of coaching because I am open to receiving, and trusted myself that I would know what to do. And I'm not sure if I've ever been as brave or as loving or as grounded or present and less connected to my ego as I was in the 30 minutes from the time that we took him off the ventilator and then when he passed.
Wow.
So it's something I'm cultivating. Absolutely. And I've noticed that
Yeah.
it's something that's really grown in me.
That's profound. And also it fills me and I wonder if some of our listeners with some hope that this work, it's not one lane work. It's full-bodied work, and it shows up to support us in ways we can't imagine, in things we can't know, we can't predict. But this personal growth work, this self work, this internal work, it's here for you in all the ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so lovely. Well, it feels like an odd time to ask this question, but also that's something really, truly worth celebrating. So, Julie, how do you like to celebrate?
Well, actually, it's very fitting that you should say that because we are currently planning my dad's celebration of life on Zoom this weekend. And first of all, we had a theme. So, I'm always looking for metaphors.
I love that.
While I was in the hospital, when my dad was in the ICU, my youngest was in a winter concert, and his little third grade class was doing a dance to the song "Here Comes the Sun." And my dad loved the sun. He came from New York City to California to chase the sun. He loved to golf. Like, it just felt like this incredible song. So that song is one of the things I sang to him, and we've decided that that's the theme for his celebration of life. So the Evite is
Mm,
like a picture of him with this huge sun, and we're inviting people to come and share stories and talk about the impact that he had on them, and that is a great representation of how I feel like I like to celebrate the things in my life. I like to do it with intention, thoughtfully, kind of looking for the signs or the things outside myself to give me direction. On my 50th birthday, I not only did I have a birthday celebration, and I'm so glad my dad was there, but I also organized a
mhm.
Zoom celebration for Mother's Quest. So I invited clients and podcast guests and members of the community to come. We had like poetry and song and people just sharing how Mother's Quest had impacted them, but also how they had contributed. And
Yeah, I love
my
that.
dad closed us out with his signature toast. And so I think, some people later said, like, wow, you celebrated yourself and your work in such a huge way. And like, I didn't have to wait. It wasn't a memorial to me. It was like as I'm living, marking these milestones. And I think that's really important. So I like to celebrate along the way and
Yeah.
really find the opportunities to stop and take a moment to reflect and make meaning.
Yes. That's what's so beautiful about it. And I love that you do it along the way and we pause and I just so deeply believe and more than believe, I just know for myself that celebration begets celebration. The more we pause to show gratitude in the form of celebration, the more there is to celebrate.
Absolutely.
That is so lovely. All
Yes.
right, Julie. Well, we hinted at this in the early part of the conversation, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to share. What is your favorite charitable organization to support?
So I know you want me to say one, and I will, but I have to first say that one of the things that was very meaningful about the Women Podcasters in Solidarity Initiative, and particularly for me, the episodes I recorded for those, is that I often had an opportunity to record an episode to shine a light on a story, but then to also invite members of the community to donate to the cause related to
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
person. I mean, there've been so many meaningful episodes and organizations tied to them. So if you'd be open, I'd love to send you the links to some of those
Of
episodes.
course. Of course. So here's
Um,
this big. Now you all have to go listen or look at the show notes because Julie's going to give us a link to all of those organizations that she helped bring light to, but you're going to have to go to the show notes to find them.
yes, go to the show notes or go to the Mother's Quest website and look at the Women Podcasters in Solidarity Initiative episodes. And the one in particular that I wanted to shine a light on today with you is my conversation with Sabrina Fulton, who's Trayvon Martin's mother.
Chills.
She created something called the Circle of Mothers. And in our episode, she talks about how it literally came to her in a dream. It's an annual healing retreat around Mother's Day for moms who've lost children to gun violence, as she lost Trayvon.
Wow.
And we were able to that year raise $15,000 to send some additional moms to that retreat, some of whom were people I knew or were referred to me through the Mother's Quest community. And then I got to go with my sister Karen and volunteer. Karen is the founder of Democracy Clothing, so we brought jeans for every mother, which we thought was going to be this superficial thing, but ended up being like so meaningful, and they were so grateful and they felt so empowered in the jeans. And it was a really transformational experience. And we've continued to stay involved with Circle of Mothers, and we're going to be supporting again this year. And Sabrina reached out recently to share about the fact that it's been 10 years in February since Trayvon was killed. And I know they're doing, some additional things to honor him and to invite contributions. So if any listeners, hear this and want to go hear Sabrina's story on the Mother's Quest podcast and then make a contribution to either the Trayvon Martin Foundation generally or to the Circle of Mothers, I know that it will have a huge impact and be greatly appreciated by Sabrina and her whole team.
Thank you so much for sharing them with us. And I love the charities every week. I think that they're powerful and important, but based on the story that you just shared with us, Julie, folks can hear that and know that their donation is instantly and directly going towards greatly impacting one of these mothers' lives. And that feels, we are in this space in the world, the whole wide world, but especially here in the United States right now, where there is so much we can't do. There's so much change we want to see, we want to be part of. And I don't know about you and all the listeners, but I often feel like, man, how could I just actually really make a difference? And hearing you talk about that is like, oh, that could make a difference.
Absolutely. And I'm saying absolutely a lot. I know this.
I say, I love that. That's why I joke that people
like,
should do a compilation of me going, oh, I love that.
Well, it's because you have a great way of pulling together and reflecting back the thoughts of the person that's sharing with you. I'm sure you do that on every episode.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, yes, exactly that. But yeah, I guess what I would want to say as we're like nearing the end is that I truly believe every one of us has a way to make a difference. And then we actually know what that way is somewhere inside. It may be like these things like I had the Mother's Quest like whispering at me, but I wasn't saying yes to it or, starting to lay the pathway for it. So I hope anybody listening today like takes away this idea that you are already living your epic life, that you are already making a difference, and there may be an even fuller expression of your impact. And to realize that you can open your own door. Like that was, the bird metaphor for me in the end was that I didn't need someone else to open the door for me. I just needed to open the door and take a first few steps myself. So I hope some people are inspired to do that for themselves.
That is lovely. Yeah. Open your own door. Just that we are so out of time, but I love you. And I'm so inspired by this notion. And I would be always, but I think also specifically because of the space I am in my life personally right now, we're often waiting for somebody to open the door. We're waiting for somebody else to decide it's okay, or we think we need a sign. And we love signs, birds, all of that. The fact of the matter is, you can open the door or the window or cut a hole in the floor or whatever. You can.
Yes. And that is another reason why I love the tiny book course so much, is that I didn't have to wait for a publisher. I didn't have to, I didn't have to even buy into like, I'm going to be on the New York bestseller list. Like I could say yes to myself and I could do it in a way that felt empowering for me.
Yeah.
And that is a lesson I just keep learning again and again.
I love that. Julie, will you share your 3 words with us one last time?
Yes. Reflection, relationship, return.
Those are beautiful. And we joked before we started recording, there are 3 R's in the BRAVE method: reassessment, reframing, resilience. And you said, I've got 3 words now too. It was really
Yes,
great.
I do.
And I think they're beautiful, beautiful words. And I feel like they've resonated throughout this entire conversation. And I'm so grateful for you, for your existence in the world, for your friendship, and for all that you just shared with my listeners here, because I know that it has just touched so many hearts and souls. Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Heather. I feel like the gift of reflection and being in authentic, honest conversation with another human being is one of the most incredible gifts in the world. So thank you for giving me that gift today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for phrasing it like that. Damn, Julie, I've cried for days. Now you're going to make me cry again. Folks, I hope this has given you just a little hint of inspiration and empowerment to know that you are on the right journey. You are there. It is here for you. Find your signs, open the door, lean into your epic life. You're already there. What do you want to do with it? And maybe that means slow down. I'm not trying to push you into more. I'm just be aware. And I would love to hear what you think of this episode or any episode. The best way to do that is to follow me on Instagram. We are the Brave Files Podcast on Instagram. You can tag me, send me a DM. I'd love to chat with you and get to know you. And I have a favor. If you're not already following us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do that. And it's a brand new ability to now write a review on Spotify. And I would greatly, greatly appreciate you taking the time and making the effort. It makes a difference. And it also just makes me feel really good. I can't wait to share a brand new episode with you next week. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. This is Heather Vickery. Until we talk again, remember to go out and choose bravely.
Hey friends, I want to share something really exciting with you. We already know you enjoy listening to podcasts because you're listening to this one, but I'm also betting you enjoy audiobooks. And hey, listen, if you don't already enjoy audiobooks, then it's time to check them out. That's why I'm really excited to share Libro.fm with you. They are an incredible new platform for listening to audiobooks. And by choosing Libro.fm over other audiobook services, you are supporting a local bookstore of your choice and investing in your local community. Libro.fm offers over 150,000 audiobooks via their primary platform, which, by the way, they built with love and from scratch because they're a small business also. They even offer bookseller recommendations for great audiobook options. You can sign up right now via www.vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. That's vickeryandco.com/LIBROFM. And when you do, you'll get one free audiobook of your choice, and the proceeds will go to your favorite local bookstore. Now, check what I just said there. You're going to get a free book, and the proceeds are still going to go to your local bookstore because Libro.fm makes sure that their booksellers get paid even when they give a promo to customers. I've listened to over 20 audiobooks this year alone. I especially love listening to memoirs read by the author, and it feels great knowing that all of my purchases support my local bookstore, The Book Table, in Oak Park, Illinois. Libro.fm. The same audiobooks, the same price, but a completely different story. Check them out right now at vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Maybe you've had this thought and then quickly shut it down because who has the time? Or you don't know how, or gosh, it just all seems too hard. If you have something to share with the world, we want to encourage you to get your message out. The world needs to hear it. Did you know that 50% of all homes are podcast fans? If you've ever wondered about having your own podcast or how it can increase your business or get your message across, then please join me and the other experts from the Podcast Power Academy for our monthly free Q&A session. It's called So You Want to Start a Podcast? This casual live conversation will help you understand how podcasting can be a great decision, why now is the best time to get started, and how to get into action with it. Visit podcastpoweracademy.com to learn more. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories of people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes and full episode transcripts, or to get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we would love to know what you think of the show. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching. Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music was created and produced in a custom collaboration with Matt Lewis from ML Creative Consulting, a boutique firm dedicated to helping clients identify their unique sound and amplify their brand with custom delivered soundtracks. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to everyone on Team Brave, from our producers, associate producers, copy editors, writers, and support team. Special thanks to Molly, Mary, Kim, Sabra, and Sabrina. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.